Welcome to Meeple Mentor. I'm Jared and we're about to play Batman Gotham City Chronicles. Let's take a look. I'll show you how. Feel free to pause the video as needed to follow along with your copy of the game. For your convenience, I've added timestamps in the description to the different sections of the tutorial. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell below the video so you don't miss any of my latest content. Batman Gotham City Chronicles is a large footprint mission-based competitive game for 2 to 4 players, 5 if you have the 5th player expansion. One player will take the role of the villains, controlling each one in the scenario, while the other players get to be heroes from the Batman universe. The hero players must work together to accomplish the scenario mission or fail for taking too long. Most of the actions succeed or fail based on the roll of the dice. Each scenario has a set number of turns with different objectives for the heroes to accomplish. The turn track board keeps track of the number of turns. A single turn involves the heroes and villains taking actions. Alternate back and forth between heroes and villains until one of the in-game conditions have been met. There's a lot of iconography in the game, so stick with me and I'll teach you how to play. To begin setting up, first open the mission book and choose a mission to play out. Each mission is for a specific number of players. Look in the center of the mission book at the possible heroes usable in the mission. It specifies first, second, and up to the 3rd hero character. There's always going to be one villain player. While it's recommended to play a mission with enough players to match the heroes and villain player, it's not necessary. Should you choose a mission with more heroes than you have players to take them, someone will need to play an extra hero. The game is balanced around the number of heroes, so no matter the player count, all the numbered heroes are required. The hero players must choose one of the indicated heroes to be. Some have 2 or 3 possible hero choices. Read aloud the prologue in the mission book below the title of the mission. This will summarize the situation. Find the game board to be used in your chosen mission. For this tutorial, I'll be demonstrating the first mission named To Sink a City. It uses the subway map. Lay the game board out in the center of the table. Create a deck of the item cards and Bat Gadget cards and place them nearby. You don't need to shuffle them. Set aside the area effect tokens, which are triangular. Create different piles of tokens, including the reinforcement tokens, mission tokens, field modifier tokens, computer tokens, bombs, and others. The mission may indicate weapons or items that will start the game on the board. These could be picked up by players during the game. Check the map for the spaces these cards will go. Look in the bottom left corner of the mission for the number of tokens used. The black diamond icon next to the token shown is how many are used in the mission. Check on the map setup image for where all the starting tokens go. Place everything on the board in the places shown. This mission has 4 reinforcement tokens, 4 computers, and 5 bombs around the map. The orange items on the map means you'll use 3D scenery instead of cardboard tokens. Place the time track board next to the game map. The mission you choose will have a color-coded initiative icon. Blue means heroes get the first turn of the game. Gray means the villains start the game. For this mission, the heroes go first, so the turn track board should be blue side face up. Decide in your group who will be the villain player and who will be the different heroes. Each hero player should take a bat tablet and the chosen hero's screen. Slide the screen into the center of the bat tablet to create the hero board. Take the miniature for your hero that resembles the art. Each hero player should also take a stance marker and place it at the bottom here, where it's flipped to the side pointing to the active state. Above it is the number of red energy cubes you should collect and place in the far left reserve zone. Above the heroes to be used in the mission is a number indicating how many red energy cubes to move from the reserve zone to the fatigue zone. So each hero moves 5 into the fatigue zone for the start of the game. The mission map always shows the locations of every starting hero and villain. For the hero positions, look for the blue box icons for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd hero. Place your hero miniature on the corresponding spaces on the game board. Each hero may start with starting weapons or gadgets. Look at your chosen hero's picture in the mission book. If he has this belt icon, then you may choose Bat Gadgets from the Bat Gadget deck. The flag icon means the hero starts with a hero tile to control with their special command skill. The plus icon indicates the hero starts with an item which should be named underneath their picture. Any weapon that has a character's name printed on it may only be used by that character. When a character is able to start with Bat Gadgets, they may choose from any Bat Gadget cards in the deck. Each one has a value on it. The hero has a Bat Gadget value shown on their hero screen to the right of their picture. They may select gadgets up to the value shown on their screen. Gadget cards and item cards will sit face up near their hero board. The villain player should take the large plastic villain board and place it in front of them. This is known as the villain command post. Place the white cardboard pieces in their large spots at the top. Place the movement token in the first of the 3 center spaces. Place the defense token in the center and the reroll token on the right. Find the event tile and the enemy henchman tiles corresponding to the enemies shown in the mission. Enemy tiles are white, hero tiles are blue, and bystanders are orange. The right side of the mission shows which henchman tiles are used and how many miniatures of that type to collect. The miniature's model and the art on the tile will match. Place the tiles at the bottom of the villain board, which is known as the river. These will go in order from left to right as depicted on the mission page. These are two-sided, so put the tiles on the normal side face up. The backs are the corrupted images. Additionally, the tiles and miniatures shown on the right of the mission past the initial river setup are collected into a created villain pool. These don't start the game, but can be added in later. Set aside the miniatures near the villain player. This is called the villain pool. Now look above the henchman tiles for the villain's energy numbers. The one on the left is the number of energy cubes to start in the reserve zone. The one on the right is the number placed in the fatigue zone. The center value is the recovery value. Place the recovery token in the center of the villain board. Typically, a scenario has one or more main Batman villains used. These have special round health tokens which sit in these 4 health tracks on the villain board. These enemies have more than 1 life point, so are kept track of here. Check their health value on their tile. The heartbeat icon in the upper right indicates an enemy's health. Place a red cube on the life track for the number of health points each villain has. Just like the heroes did, the villain player should place their miniatures on the board. The map of the mission shows the spaces each enemy starts. Place 1 miniature for each pictured enemy. The pictures match up with the art of their tile and their model. Each mission is named at the top in orange with a short backstory describing the situation. This prologue should always be read aloud to everyone before starting. The large map shows which board to use in this mission and where everybody starts. Each mission indicates which side has initiative first by the color of the hourglass under the map image. The blue means the heroes take the first turn, gray for the villain to go first. Once you've set up the game board and everyone's collected their starting components, the side with initiative takes the first turn. They alternate taking turns. You'll have a separate turn track board set near the game map to keep track of the turns. The turn track marker moves up after both sides have had a turn, and each time going forward that it's the starting side's turn. If the in-game conditions have been met after either side's turn, the game ends. When an end condition is met, the side whose current turn it is gets to finish, then stop. The game end triggers are described in the upper portion of text in the blue area below the map. Each mission also has a specific number of turns allowed before the game automatically ends. There could be several ways the game can end. Usually, there's a way for the villains to push the end of the game, so the heroes run out of time to complete their objectives. The text below this is the victory conditions for each side. The heroes succeed if they accomplish what's described here before the game end happens. The villains' winning conditions are also described, which typically involves stopping the heroes from doing something. To the left of this text, there are icons shown that indicate what to add to the board or collect nearby for the scenario. The images of a villain's face here means these are the main villains in this mission. The villain players should find their miniatures, character tile, and health token. The other icons here correspond to tokens or 3D terrain. The miniatures for the terrain are used when the icon is in an orange circle. If both an orange circle and its token is shown on it, then you'll be using both. Typically, the token will be on the board at the start of the game in those cases. Collect the minis and keep them near the board for use later. The artwork of weapons or items with a blue circle behind it correspond to cards of that item. Pull those out of their deck and place their card on the game board in the space shown on the mission's map setup. Any tokens or items shown with the number and the black diamond attached to it indicates the number used. Collect this mini and add them to the map on their corresponding spaces of the game board. The other areas of the missions I haven't yet discussed are the large blue text boxes under the villain setup section. Underneath the warning image are the possible events that the villain can trigger. The event tile in the villain's river can be activated like any other tile. When it's activated, the possible events are listed in the blue text boxes. The villain player should choose one to do if multiple are listed here. Many times, one of the options for the event is to gain reinforcement points. These points can be used to bring in new enemies to the game as long as they're in the available pool. The final large blue text box describes the mission's special rule. Any new rule specific to this mission will be described here. These rules are what allows players to do special actions to accomplish the mission goals. New hero actions described here will say what type of hero action they should perform, as shown on their hero boards. The difficulty number is the minimum successes required to accomplish the action. The game board maps are all different, but share many of the same characteristics. Everything is done with colored lines and icons, which can be confusing on your first playthrough. Additionally, each map has specific areas that have different elevations. Since the maps always have a top-down view, it can be tricky to picture where the elevations are. Look in the back of the mission booklet for each game map's specific elevations and traversable areas. Start on page 56 to view each of the 4 possible game maps from the core game. Any expansions that provide new boards will come with its own game board blueprints. Check those included rulebooks. I recommend scanning and printing out separately each game board map layout so you can reference it quickly. I believe there are files for download on the game's BGG page you can use. Throughout the rulebook, you'll see it describe the spaces on the game board for your miniatures as areas. Areas are the spaces on the map for the miniatures that have white or orange boundary lines. Some areas have elevation, which are described in the specific game board rules section. There are up to 5 levels of elevation in a given map. They are color-coded on the blueprints. The thick yellow lines on the blueprint are walls, which cannot be moved or shot through. The value shown on the wall's line is the wall's level. This applies to certain effects, abilities, weapons, or items that refer to a wall's level. Usually this is used to see how difficult the wall is to destroy. Some areas let characters make a jump between them. Just look at the black line and its value to determine the jump level. The jump level shown adds to the movement cost. Many times, elevated areas can be climbed up or down to, or fallen down from. The orange lines and arrows pointing to an area indicate a climb is possible. The value of the climb shown adds to the movement cost. Falling from an elevation is possible if there's either a white line and arrow or half of the orange arrow is white. You may fall to an area the white arrow points to. The fall value doesn't add to the movement cost. Instead, when performing a fall, you should roll yellow dice equal to the fall level. Suffer wounds equal to your rolled successes. You'll need to be able to find distance and line of sight for various ranged attacks. The distance between 2 areas is measured by counting the minimum number of moves that separate them. Think of this as counting the shortest connected path of areas. Do not count movement point costs when determining the distance between 2 areas. The game board rules may specify an area as a promontory. Promontories block line of sight, but to or from the promontory area always has line of sight. Think of them like a sniper's bird's nest. The round dots on an area, some with letters shown, are to help with determining line of sight. Ranged attacks will require clear line of sight. Obstructions for line of sight include promontories, walls, or a higher elevated area between the 2 areas. You'll have a clear line of sight if any of these 3 are true. 1, you can draw an imaginary straight line between the line of sight icons in the areas without hitting an obstruction. 2, the areas are directly adjacent and share a white or orange boundary line. Or 3, the areas share at least 1 letter in common surrounding their line of sight icons. Each area on the board shows an occupation limit, which looks like a triangle icon with a person and a number. Each character in the game, whether hero or villain, has a size index to them. Each area can hold a maximum number of characters by adding up their size indexes. If a character would try to move into an area but their size would push the occupation limit over the total limit, they may not move there. Remember that the printed size index icon in an area is not number of characters, it's their added size value from their stats. Batman would take up more space than a small henchman, for example. You'll need to be able to calculate movement costs for characters for them to properly move around the board. I'll go into more detail on movement later, but there are some movement restrictions found on the game board to look at. Each move between adjacent areas costs at minimum 1 movement point. Some areas have a difficult terrain icon on them with a number. This number is added to the movement cost necessary to leave that area. Some areas are dangerous, shown by the dangerous terrain icon that has a skull on it. The number shown is how dangerous it is. Any character entering a dangerous area must roll a number of yellow dice equal to the total danger value. The character suffers wounds equal to the number of successes rolled. Also, if an area a character's in becomes dangerous when they're already there, they should immediately roll for wounds. Sometimes you'll need to use dissipation tokens, which get placed in an area. The effects are temporary and slowly dissipate away. There are 4 types possible: gas, flame, smoke grenade, and frost. These are double-sided with one side active and the other dissipating. As they are added to an area, they come in active side face up. Then at the beginning of the turn of the player who put it there, flip it from active to dissipating. Then on their next turn, remove the token. The full effects of each type of token are described in the skills appendix starting on page 46 or in the mission brief. Usually, each of these tokens increases the area's danger level by 1. Explosions are a type of effect associated with a level and a target area determined by a skill or special rule. When an explosion occurs, first temporarily increase the danger level of the area. Characters should immediately roll the explosion level's number of yellow dice to check for wounds. Then, after applying any wounds to characters, the area returns to its initial state. When it's the hero's turn, they do not act according to a defined turn structure. They have the freedom to coordinate actions as they see fit among all the players and hero characters. For example, maybe Batman first moves and attacks, then Robin does a range attack, then Batman moves again. There are no limitations on the order for any actions between all players and their heroes. When they declare they are all done with taking actions, the villain takes their turn. To do most actions, heroes must spend energy cubes from the reserve zone and move them into the action or abilities zone. Looking at a hero board under their name, you'll see up to 3 icons. The first one is for Bat Gadgets. If they don't have the icon, they may not carry Bat Gadgets. Each hero with the ability for Bat Gadgets gets to choose any from the deck to use. Compare the Bat Gadgets values with this number. They may hold up to the limit shown here. Beside it is the hero's size index number, or how large he is in an area. The third icon is the menace index number, which is how intimidating they are to enemies in their area. Top left action zone is for melee attacks. The one underneath is for ranged attacks if they have a ranged weapon. The zone underneath that is for manipulation actions, and the bottom one is for thought actions. These types are usually situational and dependent on the mission. The boot icon is the zone for movement. Spend energy cubes there for extra move points. As most actions involve rolling dice and checking successes, you have a reroll zone on your board that helps you reroll any one die you just rolled. Each hero has an automatic amount of defense dice to use when taking damage. However, you may roll more defense dice by spending energy in the defense zone. For each cube spent in these zones, you can roll 1 of the colored dice shown next to it. The colored dice are all of varied strength or likelihood for successes. In order of weakest to strongest colored dice, there's white, yellow, orange, red, and black. Each hero has their own screen which fits into the Bat tablet. The hero screen will tell you all their stats. Any skills or traits they possess will be shown with icons in the center surrounding their artwork. Each player should refer to the appendix for descriptions on how their specific trait or skill works. Using them to your advantage is the best way to succeed a mission. This token is your stance token. At the start of the hero turn, each hero will need to decide if they will be active or resting this turn. Each hero has a default number of movement points given to them for their first move made during the hero turn. However, carried items will add weight, which affects your encumbrance level. Add up all your items' weight, and your starting movement bonus will change based on your item's total weight. Additionally, your encumbrance may affect other actions as well. Look for the scale icon next to any action zone to apply its penalty. Heroes can hold items and bad gadgets, depending on the hero. A hero may choose to drop an item or bad gadget in their area on their turn as a free action. Doing this doesn't require any energy cubes and may even be done when the hero is resting. The name is shown at the top of the card. The weight or encumbrance value is shown in the top right. There are 4 types shown by the icons. There's objects, tools, melee weapons, and ranged weapons. Some cards have a hero's name on it, meaning they are restricted to being used by only that one hero. Other restrictions would be shown to the left of the artwork with icons. For example, an icon with an arrow pointing down to trash means it's a one-time use. After using it, it's removed from the game. If you see the skull icon, then it is a deadly weapon. Heroes with the moral code trait may not use it. The effects of the card are shown at the bottom and are referred to as the bonus line. Look at the icons to see how the card gives you a bonus. If you see the infinity symbol, it has a permanent effect. Otherwise, the icon will match one of the types of actions you can take on your hero board. Add the bonus of everything after the plus icon. It could be dice of the shown color and/or a new skill. If the hero already had the skill, its level is added to the skill level of the hero for a stronger effect. Sometimes a number is shown in a diamond at the far right. This is the number of automatic successes added to the result. The hero turn proceeds through a number of phases, with all hero characters doing each phase at the same time. First is the upkeep phase. Any spent energy cubes used for defense or rerolls during the villain's turn are moved to the fatigue zone. Next, trigger any effects that say at the start of the hero's turn. Then you must declare each hero's stance. Each character chooses to be active or resting. Resting heroes recover more energy, but cannot take actions. During this step, each character gets to move a number of energy cubes from fatigue to reserve zone. If all characters are resting, you can skip to the end of the hero's turn. The stance marker is used to help indicate how many cubes are recovered. After this point, heroes can take actions one at a time in any order. They may keep taking actions until they decide they're done, or they've run out of energy cubes and actions to do. At this point, trigger any effects that say at the end of the hero's turn. Then the heroes get an end of turn upkeep phase. The heroes are special in that they get to have a second upkeep, while the villains don't. Once again, the heroes move any spent energy cubes from their action zones back to the fatigue zone. The villain player will have the command post in front of them, which lets them control all the villains on the board. Villains have their own movement and defense values shown on their tiles. However, the villain player may choose to spend energy cubes to boost them. These are added to the spaces next to the boost token. Extra defense can be gained by spending cubes around the body armor token. For each cube spent here, they may roll an orange die to block incoming damage. Also, they may spend cubes to re-roll dice. 1 die per energy cube. Each of these areas are limited in how many cubes can be placed here. They will spend energy cubes from the reserves on the left to activate villain tiles in the river, which is along the bottom of the board. Any tile in the river may be activated by spending its activation cost shown on the board above it. The tiles get more expensive to activate the further right they are. To activate a tile, the villain player spends the current cost shown above it in energy cubes from the reserve zone to the fatigue zone. Then remove the tile and slide all the rest to the left to fill the gap. Then add the tile to the end of the river at the far right. The event tile with the warning sign on it is always used. The villain player can spin cubes to activate it based on its position in the river and do one of the stated events. Normally, it provides reinforcement points that can bring villains back into the game. The character tiles all have a similar layout, which describes their stats, actions, and abilities. A tile describes the features of a character for each miniature associated with that tile. The miniatures each get their own activation one at a time when the character tile is activated. Some tiles are double tiles. The indicator arrow will point to its activation cost. The icon to the left of their artwork is their status level. They can be henchmen, elite, or leaders. The health points for each miniature is shown above the heartbeat icon at the top right. Most are 1. When it's more than 1, you'll keep track of their health using the life point tracks and the villain's life point marker. Next to it is the automatic defense value of each figure. This defense applies without having to roll defense dice. The value above the boot is the figure's first move bonus. This works just like the hero's first move bonus. Each miniature gets its own move point bonus. Next to this is their size index, which is used to see if moving to an area would make them exceed an area's occupancy limit. The next icon is their menace index. This number is for each figure when applying their menace hindrance to a hero. I'll explain how that works later. Any icon next to this will be its given trait. Check the trait appendix in the rulebook to see how those apply. If they have skills, they'll be in hexes in the bottom right of the tile. The very bottom right corner is their reinforcement cost. If a miniature is neutralized and removed from the board, they go to the character pool. The cost of reinforcement points to bring back a single mini of this tile is printed here. Reinforcement points not spent when earned are lost. Newly reinforced minis enter the board in one of the areas of the board with a reinforcement marker. This is determined by the mission brief. To the left are the 4 basic actions they may do: melee attack, ranged attack, manipulation, and thought actions. For the given action, they can roll all the dice printed next to it. The number above it is how many times a figure can repeat the action. If the circle / icon is shown next to an action, they may not do this action at all. If just blank, they must have other means to allow them to roll dice. Typically, it's the villain triggering tiles, but sometimes a hero can control character tiles using either the elite command skill or henchman command skill. Heroes can never control leader tiles. Each villain turn goes through a series of phases similar to the heroes. There are some differences, however. The first phase is the villain's upkeep phase. All energy cubes previously spent on movement, defense, and rerolls are moved to the fatigue zone. Then the player can recover as many cubes from fatigue into reserves as is shown on the recovery token in the center. Next, trigger any effects that say at the start of the villain's turn. The villain player may now choose to activate a tile in the river. If they don't want to activate a tile, skip to the end of the turn. The player spends energy cubes from the reserve zone to the fatigue zone, matching the cost of the tile's position in the river. After activating a tile, each miniature corresponding to it takes its own separate turn. If triggering the event tile, the player chooses one option from the mission brief for event effects. The tile is immediately moved to the end of the river, and all tiles slide down to the left. Then the player is allowed to activate one more tile in the river. When done, move on to triggering any effects that state at the end of the villain's turn. Then they're done and play continues to the hero's turn. When the villain player pays the energy to activate a tile in the river, they may choose to activate any number of the miniatures related to the tile activated. They need to finish the full activation of the miniature before moving to the next one. Each mini can be activated only once, however. The process of activating a single mini starts with designating a miniature on the board to activate. Then they may move. Their first movement gains the stated movement points on the tile, and if more movement points are needed, the player can spend energy cubes in the movement space on the command post. After moving the character, then they may do an action as allowed or shown on the tile. Some actions let the character repeat it multiple times. You may do it up to the limit shown in the number above the dice. Lastly, the miniature is allowed to make another movement, but this movement must be entirely paid for in energy cubes. It is possible that the mini skips their first movement and does an action first, followed by a movement. In this case, they will gain their first move bonus points after taking the action. Then the character's activation is done. The villain player can then move on to another miniature's activation tied to this tile. Once a villain character has taken enough damage to reduce their health to 0, they are neutralized. It is removed from the board and sits in the villain pool. If all miniatures related to a tile are neutralized, the tile immediately flips over to the corrupted side and moves to the end of the river. This tile will slowly slide back to the left in the river, but may not be activated again until its miniatures enter the game again. The event tile is the normal way the villain player gains reinforcement points, which lets them bring in miniatures from their villain pool back to the game board. The earned reinforcement points must be spent when earned, or they're lost. The cost of a single character's reinforcement cost is shown in the bottom right of the tile. The newly added minis enter the board at one of the reinforcement areas, as shown from the mission setup. If a character would enter a reinforcement area but would overoccupy it due to its size index, it must instead enter the board to an adjacent area it wouldn't overoccupy. If none are available, it does not enter the board. If you bring back a character from a neutralized tile, the tile flips back over to the active side. As a free action during the villain's turn, they may remove 2 of their energy cubes from the game and remove a neutralized tile from the game. These cubes should first come from their fatigue zone, second from the spaces, and third from the reserve zone. These removed cubes and tiles may never be brought back into play during this game. The villain also has the option as a free action to demobilize a tile from the river even if it's not neutralized. They can't demobilize a leader tile, however. It works the same as dredging the river, but the villain can only do this once in the whole game. 2 cubes are still removed from the command post to remove the tile. All the miniatures on the game board corresponding to the demobilized tile are immediately removed and go into the game box, not the villain pool. Now I'm going to do a deep dive on how movement works. All character movement is done via movement points. Each character has a first move point bonus at no extra cost. Unused bonus move points are lost. For villains, each character activated by a single tile gets its own first move point bonus. Movement can be hindered by enemies present in the same area. A character's movement leaving an area is hindered based on the calculated size index and difficult terrain level. Add the size indexes of all enemies in the area and subtract the total size indexes of all allies in the area. You don't count yourself. This is the base movement hindrance index. Then add any difficult terrain levels. This number is your total moving hindrance cost, which must be paid in movement points to leave the area. So your movement hindrance to leave an area is the total size index of enemy minis minus the total size index of your allies plus the difficult terrain level. To resolve a move, follow these steps. First, declare a movement. Know that you may not move into an area if you would overoccupy the size index limit. Next, create the move point pool. It starts at 0, but bonuses are added by skills, traits, and special rules. Add in the first move point bonus if it's the first movement action of that character this turn. You'll be able to make a simple move or special move. You must calculate the move cost. Then spend energy cubes to the movement action zone if the cost of the movement you're trying to make is more than your current point pool. You are limited to a number of energy cubes in each action zone by its exertion limit. Move the miniature to the destination area and apply any effects of the destination area, such as dangerous terrain. You may keep moving the character with unspent movement points. If you keep moving, you should do another simple or special move and spend energy cubes again if you need to. Once you end your movement, all unspent move points are lost. A simple move is between adjacent areas over a white or orange line. A special move could be a fall, climb, or jump. A simple move costs 1 movement point plus the movement hindrance index and difficult terrain of the starting area. A fall is a special move from an elevated area to a lower area. Falls are only possible according to the game board's map blueprint, where there's a white arrow. A fall costs 1 move point plus the movement hindrance and difficult terrain of the starting area. However, the character must roll a number of yellow dice equal to the fall level. They'll take wounds equal to the rolled successes. A climb is possible upwards or downwards between different elevations if the map's blueprint shows an orange arrow to them. Add the level of the climb to the total cost of the movement. So 1 move point plus the climb level plus the movement hindrance plus any difficult terrain. A jump is a special move allowed between 2 areas if a black arrow is shown on the map blueprints. This costs the same as a climb, but you add the jump cost shown instead of the climb cost. Heroes and villains both can take the same type of actions, and they're performed the same way. Heroes may hold bat gadgets or items to give bonuses to their actions. Villains cannot. Actions available to villain characters are listed on their tile. Heroes must spend energy cubes to perform specific actions. For For each cube spent on a hero's action, gain 1 die as printed on their hero screen. Heroes can spend cubes up to the exertion limit printed on their screen for each action. Heroes may not add energy cubes to an action space if the exertion limit has been reached. Also, when calculating successes, there are no negative numbers. 0 is the lowest. When doing a single action like this, you must pay all the energy cubes you want first, then collect and roll those dice. You may not place a cube and roll 1, then place another and roll another die to contribute to the same attack. These would be considered separate attacks or separate actions. First, I'll go over melee and ranged attacks. Melee attacks can be done against an enemy target in the same area as your character. A villain does a melee attack according to the dice shown on their tile. Look next to the melee action icon. Heroes must spend energy cubes into their melee action zone to melee attack. For each cube spent, they may roll an equal number of shown colored dice. Collect these dice and add any weapon bonuses from cards or printed skills and traits. Some weapons may give you extra dice to use in melee attacks. Roll all the dice allowed and add up the successes rolled. Check for any automatic successes given from bonuses, skills, or traits for melee. Rerolls can now be applied to any of your rolled dice. Some heroes have free rerolls allowed to them, indicated by this icon. Do these first if you want to use them. Then you may choose to spend energy cubes in the reroll zone of your board to reroll more dice. For each cube spent here, you may reroll 1 die. Once the exertion limit is reached, you may not put any more energy cubes there for rerolls. Now you will compare your successes to the enemy target's defense. The villain character has an automatic defense value shown on their tile. Heroes may have an automatic defense value shown, or a free defense die available to roll. The target may spend energy cubes up to their exertion limit on defense as well. For each cube spent, they may roll the shown colored defense dice. The villain player can pay to roll defense dice too, but will always use the orange dice. Subtract the target's defense level and their rolled defense dice successes from the total attacking successes rolled. Apply the difference as wounds to the target. Then the melee attack is over. Heroes who take wounds will move the same number of energy cubes from their fatigue zone into the wound zone. If not enough cubes are available, move some from used action spaces. Lastly, use cubes from the reserves to apply wounds. If a hero has all energy cubes in the wound zone, they must choose a resting stance on their next turn. Ignore their skills during this turn. Heroes may heal wounds by recovering energy at the beginning of their turn. Anytime the hero would recover a number of energy cubes greater than what's available in the fatigue zone, they instead move that many cubes from the wound zone into the fatigue zone. Ranged attacks are done similarly to melee attacks, except you can target enemies in your area or in a different area as long as you have line of sight. A villain can only range attack if there are dice shown next to the ranged attack icon on their tile. The dice shown is what they can roll. A hero may only range attack if they have a ranged weapon. They must spend energy cubes from the reserve zone into the ranged attack action zone. They spend as many cubes there for the action, up to the exertion limit. Create the dice pool of the colored dice shown next to the action zone. 1 die per energy cube spent. Add any weapon bonuses you have that boost range attacks. If the target is on a lower elevation, you gain an elevation boost to your ranged attack. Add 1 yellow die to your dice pool. Next, roll all the dice in the pool. Do any free rerolls given to you. If there's an arrow on the dice image, each die paid for and rolled can be rerolled once for free. The yellow dice from an elevation bonus does not give a free reroll. After doing any free rerolls, you may choose to spend energy cubes to the reroll zone on your hero board or villain command post respectively. Add up the successes rolled, plus automatic successes gained from bonuses, skills, or traits. Compare this total to the target's defense value like normal. The target has the opportunity to roll defense dice. Heroes may have a free defense die. Heroes and villains are allowed to spend energy cubes to their defense action zones to roll extra defense dice, up to their exertion limits. Subtract the target's defense level from the total ranged attack successes. Subtract the menace hindrance index from this total. Apply total successes as wounds to the target. Then the ranged attack is over. Ranged attacks, manipulation actions, and thought actions are all hindered by the menace hindrance index. The menace hindrance is calculated the same as the size index hindrance except it's based on the menace values. Add the menace indexes of all your enemies in your area and subtract the total menace indexes of allies in your area. Don't count yourself. This number is your action hindrance cost, which cancels out X number of dice roll successes. Total menace index of enemy miniatures minus total menace index of allied miniatures equals your hindrance cost. The menace index never applies to melee attacks. There are two more actions available, manipulation and thought actions. These tend to be situational and special actions described in the mission brief. The heroes must spend energy cubes on these actions, while villains can do them conditionally and as shown on their tiles. There are two kinds of manipulation actions, automatic and complex. Automatic manipulations require one energy cube spent to the manipulation action zone, but no dice need to be rolled. These are always successful. The different automatic manipulation actions are picking up equipment, giving equipment to another player in the same area, taking equipment, mission-specified ones, and skill-specified automatic manipulation actions. Complex manipulations require energy cubes spent to the hero's manipulation zone and are successful based on the dice rolls. Gain the colored dice shown next to the action equal to the spent energy cubes for the attempt. Declare what you're attempting and collect the dice pool. Add tool bonuses from cards with the tool icon. Roll all the dice and conduct any free rolls allowed to you. Spend extra energy in the reroll zone if you want additional rerolls. Add up the total successes. Subtract the menace hindrance index from the total rolled successes. If you don't have enough successes to meet the difficulty level of the action, you failed the attempt and the complex manipulation action ends. If your total successes are equal to or greater than the difficulty level, then conduct the complex manipulation. The different complex manipulations are throwing equipment, disarming an explosive device, mission-specified ones, and skill-specified complex manipulations. When throwing equipment, you must have line of sight to your target ally. The difficulty level for the throw is equal to its distance. There are also two kinds of thought actions, automatic and complex. These thought actions work the same as manipulation actions, but energy cubes are spent to the thought action zone. Automatic thought actions require only one cube to be spent and are automatically successful. The complex thought actions require you to roll dice and meet a certain difficulty level. Most of these are all mission specified. Both thought and manipulation actions also have exertion limits, which should be recognized. Each zone can only hold a limited number of energy cubes in them, so if the exertion limit has been reached, no more energy cubes can be spent on that action this turn. Keep the rulebook handy and check BoardGameGeek.com for FAQs and extra content. I do recommend for this game to head to the Files section and print out copies of the board map, blueprints, lists of skills, and the list of traits possible. All of this information is of course in either the rulebook or mission book, but it's much handier to have them printed out separately. Check the video description for links to Top Shelf Gamer for token upgrades, Cloud Puncher Games for board game shelving, and Mr. Meeple t-shirts for cool board gaming shirts. The Meeple Mentor channel is now part of the board game community, the Gateway Network, made up of great upcoming board game content creators. Originally founded by the Gamecasters podcast, the network includes Instagrammers, podcasters, YouTubers, artists, and even a board game themed comedy series. Click the link in the video description or head over to the Gateway Network's Instagram to find great new content. Thanks for watching this tutorial. Like and subscribe if you found this teaching helpful. Stick around to watch another Learn to Play video. And remember, teach when you can, but always be learning. See you next time.